One thing that Stranger Things did worse than, the action and the suspense and the stakes and the final battle with Vecna and the Mind Flayer in the finale was not tying up loose ends and just generating infinite plot holes. So let's just talk about a good 25 plot holes that I found. So the first one is, how did 11 know Will in season 1? And who closed the garage door? Because the Duffer Brothers told us that the Demogorgons don't have telekinetic powers. So how did that happen? Was it Elle? Why was that never explained? Was it Vecna? Vecna couldn't have been, on Earth. So who the fuck did it? That makes no sense. And this one's a good one. How did 11 know about the Upside Down, like right after it happened? How did she know about the portal? How did she know she opened the gate? All we saw from Elle was that she tapped into the Demogorgon's mind and things just started to fall apart and she escaped. That is all we saw. How would she know it was, you know, an upside down version of Hawkins? How did she know to flip the D&D board upside down? That part doesn't make much sense still. And how was 11 able to open a portal to Dimension X if Vecna couldn't do a portal to Earth? Why couldn't Vecna get to Earth? That didn't make much sense either. What was Callie and Henry's relationship? Because if you guys remember when Elle and Callie talk in the church, Elle tells Callie about Henry, aka One, and then Callie says, "Oh, I knew all about Henry." So she even knew his powers, his origin. How? And how did Callie escape? That's almost the worst one. How would Callie have escaped? Unless maybe Vecna helped her. Why was that never explored? It just really does not make sense. How was Will able to communicate through the lights if timing the upside down is frozen? Because if you guys remember, Joyce put up the lights after Will was taken and after the psychic contact with the Demogorgon happened. So how would Will have been able to communicate through the lights? It just doesn't make sense. How are the Demogorgons able to create portals at will? Well, this is a very good one, because if the Demogorgons work for Vecna and, all this, how did Vecna need a human sacrifice to, open these gates when the Demogorgons literally tore holes in and out of the upside down whenever they wanted to? Just, oh my gosh. And oh yeah, what happened to the Mind Flayer particles at the end? Is the Mind Flayer still alive? Because we know that the Mind Flayer is comprised of the particles, and we saw the particles be expelled from the kids at the end. So Mind Flayer is still alive. What happened to the particles? What is the relevance of the Abyss Stone that went into Vecna's blood? And does this retcon the play? Because in the play, it was sort of like a dimensional transporter, and it was being in Dimension X that sort of altered his blood. It wasn't like a stone. So that kind of tears apart the canon entirely. Why did Vecna say the Mind Flayer never controlled him? We literally saw in the play Henry trying to resist the Mind Flayer. Why did he not get redemption? It was such a bad plot hole. It didn't make much sense. It sort of undid every single thing they were trying to do with the play. And where were the Demogorgons in the Upside Down in Dimension X? What was their backstory? Why did they start off at tadpoles? Because if you remember, Dart started off as a tadpole. So was the Abyss once an aquatic realm? Why were they tadpoles? And where were the Demobats? Where did they all go? Why is the air in the Upside Down no longer toxic? If you remember in season 1, they literally had to wear these suits, the hazmat suits, because it was dangerous to breathe that stuff in. In season 2, it was like these little spores in the Upside Down. Why were they just able to walk around the Upside Down? And, was milkshakes at Melvald's just a coincidence? Because we saw Vecna do that when he was a kid, but, Melvald's wouldn't have milkshakes in this time period. So it's either that was just bad writing, it was confusion, it was something, I don't know. I really thought that was going to be a Byler gate, but I'm very disappointed about that, and it just created this very stupid plot hole. Oh, why would Will say he enjoyed getting lost in the forest? That whole coming out scene was very just confusing. I genuinely thought that Will was a spy and that Vecna, the Mind Flayer, was speaking through him. It did not make much sense. Oh, and how is there water in the Upside Down for Eleven's uh chamber thing? How is there water in there? Because even Lover's Lake didn't have water in the Upside Down. Where did that water come from? How old was Callie when she was taken? Was she not like the other kids? Because if you remember season 2, Elle finds Callie through this little newspaper article, and it says that Callie was a little girl taken in London. So how did she get to America? Why did she not get taken at birth like Elle did? That part was very confusing. I don't understand Kelly's timeline still. Oh, and how did Brenner have journals about the Upside Down before the Upside Down existed? Because Dustin found those journals about the Upside Down, the wormhole, exotic matter, but technically that should have all been written before the Upside Down was created because time doesn't change. And what was the white stuff? Like, none of that was really explained. Why wasn't Vecna able to resist L's influence in his mind like the Flayer sort of had Billy do? Like, the Flayer had Billy's mind be all jumbled. It was hard for L to traverse, but L could literally just go into Vecna's mind, get to the house, drag him from the table. Yeah, that part was stupid. How is Vecna and L's trance power different from Kali's illusions? Because at first I thought that, Kali's illusion, since she's an imperfect version of Vecna, she can only do the illusion. She can't do telekinesis and stuff. But then L puts Max into a trance. So Callie and Vecna were not doing illusions. The 11 and Callie were both like just having different powers innately. Didn't make much sense. I don't understand the nature of Callie's powers to begin with, but so since Vecna could teleport at will, as shown by when he teleported when Callie was trying to stab him, why didn't he? Why did they have that big long walking sequence in the desert? How were the gates created aside from L's psychic contact? Because the Upside Down wasn't supposed to exist until then. Gates the Upside Down only existed when L psychically contacted Dimension X and the Demogorgon. So how did the Demogorgons make gates if it was based on that psychic contact? That part needs to be explained. Why did Vecna need the kids? Is that ever going to be explained? Like, if they were vessels, like, what was the purpose of the vessels? Why? Why did Vecna take Will of all kids? And what was Will's role in season 1? That still wasn't explained very well. Like, when he had the tentacle in Will, what was the point of that? Is that ever going to explain what was the reason for that? But what happened to the dying flowers at the end of season 4? I really thought they were going to address this. How did that just go away? Okay, so these are just 10 rapid fire dropped in incomplete plot lines, but Henry's redemption, very incomplete. They butchered the first shadow. Will's painting, is Mike ever going to find out that Elle wasn't the one who commissioned it? Why did we never get Mike's perspective in regards to Will being in love with him? Because that first confirmed that Mike found out that Will was in love with him in the coming out scene. Why did we never get Mike's perspective? No one-on-one that discussed that very heavily. Brenner's motivations, why was that not discussed? Why was the entire nature of the program not discussed? Henry's past friends, like Joyce, not having any dialogue with him. What was the point of the first shadow? Why was there so much tension and setup for Stancy for them to not have even a one-on-one conversation, like an unambiguous sign of love? Why did they not even talk? Why didn't Mike tell Elle he loves her? Because that was a big grievance Elle had in season 4. So why did he do it again in the finale? Was Mike being so out of place in a hetero relationship purposeful? Why did he call girls a whole different species? Why was he unable to tell Elle he loves her? How did the Russians know about the Upside Down and how to open a gate? What happened to the Mind Flayer particles in Russia? What happened to even Susie and Dusty?